I love when we hear the music twice. So nice, you got to hear it twice.
Boom.
New York, New York.
How is this today, guys? We're trying our new setup again. I'm trying to get a clock for us so we can
Oh, I
see.
love that.
This is on YouTube. I'm trying to be Gen Z. There's a soundboard. I don't know if you can hear that. Okay, Cindy says we're wonderful. You can hear us okay. Yesterday, I know we had some issues with the audio. It sounded a little weird. We fixed the lighting. We fixed the audio. How are we feeling now?
Let's check it with John. How do we sound?
This is great.
Megan says it's soft.
But like in a good way, like in a podcasty way,
Like
an
ASMR.
way. Yeah.
And we're listening. We're sharing your voice, and the people were asking for more JMBM, so we're giving it to them.
Who was asking for more John?
You can
Everyone.
see some of the comments on mine.
Melly
Oh,
Lynn.
different. Melly's asking for more
Melly's
John.
always
DJ up
asking
here.
for more John. John, how much more do you have to give?
Oh, plenty.
Oh, good. Thank God.
Right.
Barb
Peter
says, this is different.
Yeah, it sure is. Peter, loving the red, so much better, no muffling. Okay, glad to hear it.
Wearing the red today because I am emceeing. Woo! I knew that was going to happen. And that's why I didn't bring my water bottle up here. It's a very cramped table we have.
Damn it, I'm thirsty sometimes.
I'm wearing red today because I'm emceeing the Go Red for Women's Luncheon today. It's at the Hyatt. Tickets are sold out, so you can't come, but you
can't
can. You can make a donation to the American Heart Association because big deal. Obviously, we talk about this every single year. Heart disease, the #1 killer in women, and we have a great conversation and a great event planned for today. You remember Denise? She was here
Oh my gosh,
a
she was
couple weeks
amazing.
ago, and we had the best conversation with her. So candid, so honest about everything she's gone through. She had a heart attack in 2020. She had a heart transplant a couple years back, and now she's good as new and she's feeling fantastic. So she's our keynote speaker. Have a lot going on today, but that's why I'm wearing the red. So it's the vibe.
You're going red for women. Love that for us.
Going red for women.
Okay, so we want to continue our coverage this morning of the Collins correctional strike that has since. Oh my God! Look at what Anita said.
Anita, girl, that's what we call this room. We
Welcome
have a
to
number of Disney
Epcot.
adults here,
A bunch of weirdos.
and they called this Epcot because yes, the wall is similar to that big golf ball in
Uh,
Orlando.
okay, so Connie says sound is much better, but I like you guys better in the newsroom.
We're not gonna be here exclusively. Sometimes we have guests. Sometimes we'll go back down there.
We'll
But I
see.
think let's embrace the new look. New
M.A.
vibe.
Joanna
Janusz.
Strobel. Where's the blonde girl? Ah, that blonde.
Where's the blonde girl
That
that was on with
girl.
Ed Dranch?
That girl had a baby.
She had a baby. She had a little boy, and she is at home taking care of that little baby.
Yeah, that girl.
So this girl's here for now.
So we got the other girl.
Where's that blonde girl?
Where's that woman? Jessica says, will you be talking about Collins today? Yes. And I think this
Absolutely.
is very interesting because what's interesting about Collins today is that a day after the mediation talks, the first mediation meeting between NYSCOBA, which is the union representing the COs, and the state, we are entering a very uncertain term. And what do I mean by that? I mean that for Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York State, she is in quicksand.
Well, yeah. And we are far from the end of this, it feels. I mean, we're on day 9 of the strike. It was day 2 of conversation negotiations between the union and the state. And I don't think that they're close to coming together.
Right. So here is what I mean. Yesterday, we found out that not only is she telling the workers inside these prisons to get back to work, she's saying her own lieutenant governor doesn't want to work with her anymore. We're talking about the second in command in New York State, who is decidedly not doing his job according to what Hochul has said.
He's been in his own quicksand
Right.
over the years, of course, but now it just seems that there is rift upon rift and issue upon issue compounding on each other for the state right now.
So we're talking about Antonio Delgado, and I want to read you the statement that Hochul sent out yesterday because it's full of tea.
We'll spill it for you this morning.
And when you consider the office's statement, the governor's office about her own number 2, listen to what she had to say about him. This is a direct quote. Today, Antonio Delgado finally said out loud what has been obvious for quite some time. He is simply not interested in doing the job of the lieutenant governor of the state of New York. Governor Hochul had already begun taking steps to identify a new running mate for 2026. We will also be reallocating responsibilities within the administration to ensure that important initiatives that had been with the lieutenant governor's office are no longer neglected. Governor Hochul wishes him the best in his future endeavors. So she's dealing with quite the crisis, not only internally, but externally. We know that her polling is subpar.
Not great.
We know that and I was kind of trying to do the math here, trying to figure out how many crises she's actually dealing with. Collins, the correctional strike, that's number 1.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams.
Eric Adams, number 2. What is she going to do? She said she's going to just leave him in office,
Right.
really leave it up to the voters next year to see if they actually want him as mayor. And number 3, illegal immigration. She's faced the backlash. She's faced all sorts of issues when it comes to where these migrants should go and who's going to pay for them. Under her watch, it was a cluster.
I think we're going to see a huge shakeup. I mean, she already talking about finding another running mate. That campaign is going to be interesting. We'll
Mhm.
see who kind of rises up against her and who's going to run for governor. But gosh, I mean, it's all coming down on her right now, especially with the strike and everything going on. And then yesterday, you got word that they were going to be like shutting down Collins in some kind of way. And now we're hearing they're moving inmates out of Collins because of the strike.
So let's just be clear. The governor is looking to close 5 prisons under the executive budget, and she wants to be able to do that with 90 days notice. Now, it's unclear if Collins is, in fact, one of those prisons that would be closing. Yet, as you mentioned, we are seeing a number of these inmates being moved out of the prison and into other facilities. Where are they going? No one has said that.
And they're also still trying to close those prisons at the same time. It just feels like there's a lot of moving parts.
Right.
How are we going to be able to get all of this done? And Anita's chiming in, moving the inmates makes 0 sense, she says.
Right.
Same inmates, same officers, just different facilities. And I think it was Peter who said that, in essence, Hochul and Delgado were on the Titanic and hit an iceberg without life jackets.
Well, I mean, we know what happened with the Titanic. They had no lifeboats. So where do they go? They drowned. And that's just the fact. And if we're comparing them to the Titanic, then, they have an imminent future, is what it sounds like. Unless the governor is on the door and spares no room for
For Jack.
right. Tyrone, why are we covering a bunch of guys who no called, no showed their job, replace them? And see, Tyrone, I think that's the problem here, is that there are a few people who actually want to do that job right now because they feel safety is at risk.
They don't want to go to work every day when they feel going to work might mean they can't come home safely.
Right. Tyrone, though, says Hochul is for the people. Love her. Nana says it'll be another 2 days for it to be spoken about. And then Mark says when Collins started, she was in Washington. She could have stayed in New York. Yeah, she was in Washington for that governor's summit where, the headline came out about Maine, how the Maine governor stood up to the president. And that's where the governor of New York was.
Melissa says you can't replace people who don't want their job. Listen, I don't think I could be a corrections officer. It
No.
doesn't sound easy. It doesn't sound like a good time. And these corrections officers are saying, we've hit our boiling point. We cannot go in there anymore.
Jessica, glad you're with us. Collins is a medium security prison. Saturday, they took out 40 maximum security inmates that were there. Why? Because of the safety of the National Guard. They weren't supposed to be there. Yesterday, they moved inmates. They don't have room for inmates anywhere. Inmates also have to be within a certain radius, which they won't be now. It's interesting because in this one facility in Collins, there are I shouldn't say there are no cells. I don't know if there are cells, but they're in a dorm-like setting.
Right.
And maybe Anita, you can help me out
Multiple
here.
people to a room.
Right. They've got bunks. It's a literal dorm, and it's all open. So I don't know if they are. I don't know how that would work. If you're moving them elsewhere, suppose would have to move them to a medium security facility, right?
And how does that work? I
Right.
mean, they're just like busing them somewhere else where there's extra bedding and space.
Interesting. I mean, it's a logistical nightmare. Megan weighing in here: 50 prisoners per guard is insane. And I think we have to pay the respect that they're due. They're not just guards; these are corrections
They're
officers.
corrections officers.
Though, are they treated the same way as officers across the state? Obviously, they have no weapons, but if they need to use force, obviously force frowned upon in any situation, but necessary in some cases.
Anita's saying you're right. In medium facilities, no cells. It's like a dorm-like setting. So you're
Mhm.
talking like bunks, a bunch of guys in the same room living all together.
Cubes is what they're calling it. Nana says they are moving them to max facilities who have empty dorms so they can have enough staffing. And NG, I don't know what you mean there. Oh,
And
National
National
Guard.
Guard.
Thank you, John. It's always short-staffed. Good morning, Jan. My mom is here. If they close prisons, wouldn't the prisoner to officer ratio grow even worse?
I think if they go to a larger prison where there's space, possibly not, but I can only imagine that, like you said, it's a logistical nightmare. How does this work out for the better for everyone?
I'm thinking about that. The state would say there are fewer people in prisons. And I would suspect that they would argue bail reform as a reason why. But when you still have people in prisons and there are still these ratios, you're putting more people together and fewer correctional officers as it is, it's just, it's a problem.
It's a problem on top of a problem. Anita says max facilities don't have dorms. So those are
Interesting.
cells.
Right, okay. Go Bills, thank you so much. Great coverage. Keep asking these questions. Really appreciate that. Julie weighing in, maybe they shouldn't violate released prisoners for such useless reasons. I'm not really sure what you mean, Julie, but maybe you can delve into that for us. Melissa, no other officers across the state have to work 24 or 48 hours with no breaks or sleep and be able to call home. Melissa obviously has a loved one on the inside in terms of a corrections officer. And when I can only imagine what the impact is on the family, right?
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's one of their biggest issues, all of this overtime. And they said they're not being paid properly for all this overtime, spending days on end at work. I mean, I can only think about, are there still people who've been there since the beginning of the strike working
I think we just recently saw some.
come out?
Yeah, which is so crazy to say. Like, the people who are guarding the facility, the people who are minding the hen house are.
Being released.
Yeah. What? Robin says, as someone who only hears details from the media, it appears to me that the prisoners have more rights than the COs. I would be worried for all the COs, and I don't understand why Hochul is being so ignorant. So Mary says, please get this out nationally. So, the attention is important here. The awareness is equally as important.
That's why we keep talking about it every day, and we keep sending
Exactly.
reporters out there. We did have Taylor Anthony out there this morning, but normally, you can see some of those corrections officers behind her today. They were trying not to be on camera because the state has said there's going to start to be retaliation. We're going to start docking pay. We're not going to give you health insurance anymore for people who are involved in this strike. So now they're avoiding us.
They're using the media, essentially. They're using us now to say, okay, I see you out there. I see you, Taylor Anthony. I see you, Taylor Epps. I see you,
Right.
John Marrero. You're now going to lose your health care. You're now going to lose your pay. Carla, good morning. This might be the first time we're hearing from you, and we're glad that you're with us. The corrections officers want their jobs. They just want to feel safe and not work ridiculous hours. Who asks employees to work 24, 34-hour shifts, 36-hour shifts? The goddess governor. And then this is an interesting comment from Jessica also, that the governor is using Collins to prove she can do what she wants with them starting the strike, I think she means. She's not even in Albany right now. And I do believe that she actually is in Albany. From what I saw, she was expected to be in Albany. I'll double check and make sure, though, that her schedule says that. What's interesting to me is that she is yet to come to Buffalo to have this negotiation. Understandably, logistically speaking, the docks superintendent or the commissioner is in Albany. So far fewer
The
people
union
are
reps
here.
have to travel
Right.
to them to have these discussions. Barb asking, is this sort of thing happening in other states? And I think that's a great question, too. What's happening in New York?
Right.
Why is this an issue that we're facing? Have other states dealt with this? I mean, we haven't seen a strike at prisons in years.
So based on her public schedule today at 10 a.m., the governor is convening an Albany Public Safety Roundtable, and that's happening at the Albany Public Library. And I don't know that that's open press or what, but I would assume that in some capacity, when it comes to this Public Safety Roundtable, there's going to be a larger discussion about public safety inside the jails.
Safety inside the safety of the inmates, safety of the corrections officers, dealing with this whole thing.
Right. Shannon says they are docking pay and serving civil charges. Showed up at 11 p.m. to some families' houses. Wow, Shannon, tell us more about that. Do you know for a fact that this is happening? And
Like
how
docs
do you
coming
know
to people's
that?
houses.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. Kamar, good morning to you. Who is protecting the cooks, the nurses inside? And we're hearing even horror stories about the civilians who were working inside the prisons. And, thank you to all of you who've reached out. This is kind of where I'm getting some of this information from. Obviously it still needs to be confirmed, but, the anecdote is at least that there are civilians inside who are getting worse treatment than the COs while they're serving lunch, while they're doing whatever the responsibility is of these COs who have since gone on strike. I'm hearing feces being thrown on people,
gosh.
milk thrown on people.
The tensions that I can imagine were already there, just continuing to grow.
Right.
And I can only imagine what every day has been like since the strike started, before the strike started.
Gene, glad you're with us as well, and I think this might be the first time we're hearing from you, and we appreciate your comment here. Thank you both for keeping an open mind with all of this. We did not want to do this. We've been hanging on by shreds,
Wow.
Gene says, for 4 years, shells of ourselves. And
There's
Gene,
a lot at risk with this strike. I mean, these workers are doing something big by saying we're not going to work anymore.
Gene, I'm interested. What has your experience been on the inside? Share that with us because your voice is valuable here. We want to make sure we're sharing all sides and making sure that we're getting the story. Athena, good morning to you. Another person who I think that we're hearing from for the first time. And this is part of why Second Cup is so amazing, because we're having this in-depth conversation about a real issue that's affecting so many people around Western New York, so many of our neighbors.
We do this every day too, so there's always an opportunity for you to chime in, share your voice.
So Anita says it's un-American to ignore safety of these COs and to dismiss it when it's presented as reality. The governor needs to go. I look forward to voting her out, she says.
Cara says, my husband is one of those civilians. Tell us more. What does your husband do? Which facility? What's he going through? What have you heard? And what's your experience been like for the past week or past couple weeks for you?
Okay, so Lisa chiming in about why is this only a New York issue? Apparently it's not. I have a friend who's in Nebraska. Lisa says he was in corrections and quite a few years ago because of unsafe conditions. So, the conditions perhaps are synonymous with other states. Shannon says 79-page civil charge related to the Taylor Law. Nothing but intimidation and threats from the governor and AG. All the COs all they're asking for is safety.
So this is what's coming, like when people are coming to their house, this is what they're
Interesting.
showing them, the civil charges.
Is what Kay is saying. COs are getting served.
11 on a Sunday.
Wow. So, and Anita, some facilities are not on lockdown and the inmates are moving around the facility like business as usual. She also mentioned that she knows for a fact that they are showing up at COs' houses. And what are they doing? Who is serving these papers? And what are the charges? That I think is interesting to me. I mean, obviously they're violating the Taylor Law by striking. Public employees are not allowed to strike. So we know it's an illegal strike, but how else do you demonstrate the need for change?
So we're seeing cease and desist letters being given out to the COs, civil charges if they strike. Jessica says it's the sheriff's office leading this, and Nana says it might be state troopers.
Cease and desist letters to COs.
Lisa hearing it's
Interesting.
state police as well.
And, I was speaking with troopers with an
Troopers with an
attorney,
attorney,
are
wow.
showing up. Wow.
So if you're a loved one at home, what do you even do with that?
Shannon, has this happened to you? Did you get a cease and desist letter, or did somebody in your family get a cease and desist letter? What's the story here? Kind of lift the curtain for us and tell us what you're seeing. And this is kind of what Kay is saying. It's a cease and desist letter to stop striking and go back to work. What does it say? Can somebody send me a copy of one of these letters? Send me a copy. Take a picture, send it to me. 716-713-3514. Call me now. I'm like Miss Cleo.
Call me now.
The number is here. If you have one of these cease and desist letters, send me that text because that's important information. Kay
Says
send
she
it
got
to
one.
me.
Send it over to Ed. Sorry, you can put the number back up, John.
Naya, good morning to you. Can you imagine, she says, if all nurses walk out of hospitals, it is illegal. There are other ways to go about it.
Shannon says 2 family members of hers. She's a CO's wife, and it's 79 pages long.
Wow.
The cease and desist letter that they're getting with photos. Photos of what?
Crazy.
Of your loved ones? Good gracious.
Yeah, send me one. I mean, I literally have my phone in my hand. I'm waiting for somebody.
Send a
Kay,
picture.
Send me what you got. Athena says, to me, it sounds like intimidation and a violation of First Amendment rights to come to their homes and to send these letters to essentially tell these CEOs to shut up and be silent.
And to go back to work.
And it's 76 papers. Listen, take a picture. I'll go through it.
Send
I'll
'em.
read every single word. So, you know, if you have one of these things, I mean, I think it's important to, you know, at least for us to take the time, read it, see what's going on, and understand the other side too. You know, whether it's happening to your family or, you know, it's coming from the state. I want to know what the context is here.
We've been having this conversation for more than a week now. Think about all that we've learned in our conversations with people here. Hopefully we get to see these letters and what we're doing. Linda thanking us for our coverage here. But every day we're peeling back these layers. We're learning more about what's going on here. I mean, it just keeps growing. It continues. How long are we going to be dealing with this? How long are corrections officers going to be fearing for their lives going to work?
And so I spoke with one CEO who I know directly, who is on strike right now. And that CEO told me the Taylor law, the charges, the violations, and the governor's own statement has done nothing to even want to coax them to go back to work. And keep in mind that I mean, they are losing pay, they are losing their health care. Keep in mind, those two things are so valuable in a job, and really that's what this is a job. Conditions have got to be that bad for them to want to lose all of that.
Their pay, their health insurance. I mean, they've got their families on the line here. Lisa's telling us, keep going, keep digging. We will. And then Michael says it's from the AG's office, these letters. He read one last night. So you have Ed's number. Text him so we can see, even if it's 76 pages, we want to see it. And we want to be able to keep sharing your voice on this.
Melissa says you can't threaten people who got threatened every day and expect them to care. And maybe that's perhaps more eloquently than I could put it.
Right.
You're threatening the people who are threatened by murderers and rapists and people who are dangerous. And if that's the case, then they're not scared. It's like, you know, Kevin McAllister, this is kind of like I'm trivializing this a little bit. It's
Right.
Kevin McAllister going outside when Old Man Marley is out there saying, I'm not afraid anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? Exactly.
Anita says Ramadan is a huge thing in prison. It starts on Friday. Shed light into why that's going to be such a big deal and you know what the fears are going into Friday, because that's going to be huge.
Robbie says Kathy Hochul could have done something about this problem while she was still Governor Cuomo's puppet. And she's had literally years to do something and she didn't. Instead of that, she closes police departments, lays off people, and gives the money to illegals to live in hotels in New York City. Isn't that nice? Okay, so let's dissect that a little bit. So Governor Hochul, now Governor Hochul, and former Governor Cuomo did not have a good relationship.
Similar to what Delgado and Hochul, what you're seeing right now.
And so Hochul was kind of stuffed away in a closet somewhere. She was doing what she thought was best as lieutenant governor, continuing her tour of the state. And Cuomo was, you know, King Cuomo for a while. Not saying that he is a king, obviously. I'm just saying that he was kind of like
figuratively.
Exactly. So what was passed may not necessarily have been agreed to by the governor. So it's interesting to kind of dissect that dynamic a little bit.
And how that changes when you become the one at the top seat and you inherit those responsibilities, but you also inherit what your predecessor did and some of these issues. And we've talked a number of times about, you know, some of these issues have been going on for a long time before Hochul was in office. So it's a lot.
This is an interesting text message I just got from Nicole. My husband is in Attica. They've been married 10 years. Her husband works in the hospital facility, has a great job, stays out of trouble. It sounds like he might be an inmate. We are able to participate in the family reunion program to help keep family ties while incarcerated. Yes, okay. The CEOs are able to tell their story, and the loved ones deserve to tell ours. Our loved ones are not safe. Inmates are endangered daily by the hands of some crooked officers. our loved ones need to be safe and secure as well. So, I feel like there's the other side of this as well. And we heard from one former inmate in particular who was in Collins and basically said, look, he sympathizes with these officers. He sees what they go through on a daily basis. And again, I don't want to paint with a broad brush. Not every inmate is a bad person. They perhaps made a mistake and they're serving their time. They want to serve their time, get out, move on with their lives. They want to rehabilitate. Not every CO is bad.
Right.
Not every CO is good. It's just like everything, right? It's important to maintain that objectivity and not paint with a broad brush.
And have perspective on every side of what we're talking about here. And Anita clarified why Ramadan is such a big deal. It's a huge tradition, celebration for a lot of the inmates, freedom of religion. It takes a lot of manpower to facilitate their services, special showers. They have a lot of prayers, late night meals and socializations because they can't eat when the sun's up. So they have to serve people at different hours. So it's probably just a different workflow for them. So if there are fewer people in there manning the prisons, they're probably going to struggle when that starts on Friday.
Robin has an interesting question. Is there a reason the civil unrest has not made it to the national news?
And someone asked if the president knows about this. I'm curious about that. Does President Trump know about what's going on? Has he been briefed on this? I mean, there's
Great
a lot
question.
going on in the federal government as well. So, are they aware of what's going on here?
It's interesting because this is a state issue. It's not necessarily a federal issue, though. If
It's becoming a big deal.
if there's
It is a big deal.
federal funding at all involved here, you would suspect that at some point, our Congress people, including Nick Langworthy, who stood up there with the CEOs and said enough is enough, would be in the presidency or saying something needs to be done.
There are
here.
federal lawmakers involved here. So, are we getting some pictures now?
So Jill, thank you so much. This is the first of what I hope is several pages to come, Jill. This is being done under Article 14 of the Civil Service Law, the Taylor Law, for an order preliminarily and permanently enjoining respondents from engaging in a strike or other concerted stoppage of work or slowdown, including engaging in, causing, instigating, encouraging, condoning, or in any way aiding or abetting a strike or other concerted stoppage of work or slowdown by any public employee or employees of docks, or picketing, congregating, or walking back and forth within 100 feet of any docks correctional facilities. Interesting. So they're basically saying you can't strike under this law, cease and desist. But I wonder if there's like a lawyer here. What would a lawyer say to something like that?
Right. I mean, do they have the ability to get representation? So if you're at home getting this letter, I guess you're calling a lawyer and saying, "Hey, help me. What do I do?" There's also a conversation going on here about what we call people incarcerated individuals versus inmates. A lot of people are saying they would rather us call them incarcerated individuals versus inmates.
Deborah saying Edgar clueless. Inmates are an organized gang by themselves. I don't think I'm clueless. I think I have a clue.
At least one.
Yeah, and I get it. But again, Deborah, what you're doing is painting with one foul swoop of a pen, or
A keyboard.
yeah, it's very important to be mindful of what we're saying here and how we're saying it. So keep that in the back of your mind. Jean says, do you have an email? Yes, it's ed.dranch@gmail. Oh, that's my personal. But either way, send it to my personal. Don't hack me, please. Either way, ed.dranch@wkbw.com. You can also text me, and I can text you that email. That might be the easiest way to go about it. But either way, there are several ways to get in touch with me: email, cell phone, you name it.
Oh, to be a fly on the wall in these negotiations. I would love to hear what's going on, what conversations are being
Right.
had.
I mean, we're talking about they only had one so far, and there are supposed to be three. And if nothing's come of the one, how much progress can we make in day 2 or day
Day
3?
2 or day 3.
Right. Melissa says they've been filing complaints, writing letters, calling to avoid a strike. Nobody listened. Why won't the state release the complaints filed by the CEOs over the last few years? And that is a great question. And I've been trying and trying and trying to get that information. And every single time those documents are supposed to be in my inbox, or those purported responsive documents, they stonewall and say they need more time to review them.
What is this now? March? You're
Yeah.
supposed to get them?
March 7th. We'll see. Time will tell. Okay, we are going to continue this conversation. We appreciate you being with us and chiming in
We're
and
gonna
being
keep
part of
talking
our
about this.
coverage. Yeah, it's not going away. Like and share. We appreciate you. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.